What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. Thanks for dropping by. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron Dinobot. And as we always do, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that packaging. So we're going to move this guy on out of the way. We'll bring that packaging in. Let everybody get a good look at that. So right on the front, you have Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron Dinobot. Good artwork there. Really like that. On the side, you have the Kingdom Collection. On the back, you have your product shots. Dinobot, 28 steps. All your warnings. The ever popular Sad Baby. And then on the, I would say on the side, but I'm going to angle that so you can see the whole effect. On the quarter panel, you have really nice artwork showing Dinobot in both of his modes. Down here you see he is a Voyager class. Up top, you have the Transformers War for Cybertron, WFC K-18, the 18th figure released in the Kingdom line. And on the bottom, you have all kinds of stuff that you could want to read if you want to later. All right, so that's it for the packaging. Now let's talk about what came in this pack. First thing we'll talk about is the insert. Again, like most of the other Kingdom packages, there's not a whole lot to see here, just some really cool glyphs and artwork on there. This is where the card is stored, and nothing on the back. Next thing, we will talk about your favorite and mine, the paper with all the warnings. Bye. Next thing we will talk about are the included instructions. Again, as I've said before, clear, concise, good instructions. Walk through it pretty nicely. Not too bad. And then we will bring in the card. So in the Dinobot, in the Dinobot packaging, I got an Optimus Prime. These cards look really cool, but I think I have a few redundant cards at this point. I'm not sure exactly how many they're putting out, but there you go. Now, let's bring Dinobot back in. He does come with 2 accessories, so go ahead and take those out and we'll show you. He has his battle shield that doubles as his tail. We'll bring that in. Not a lot to see on the inside of it, but on the outside you do have good molded detail for the dino skin. And of course it does fold to make the tail. And then you have his spinning sword, which fastens very securely in the 5mm port in his hand. So we'll bring that in. This is actually a really cool looking weapon here. Got some good detail on the handle. So this is the tab that you use to put in the 5mm port in his palm. He does hold that very securely. This also goes into the tail when you take him into, or transform him into dinosaur mode, and we'll talk about that when we get to the transformation. All right, now that we have the accessories out of the way, let's take a look at Mr. Dinobot himself. So let's bring him in for his close-up. That head sculpt is gorgeous. The detail, the paint, that just looks really good. Very impressed by that. I don't know if it's coming across on the camera. There we go. Red eyes under there. Looks really good. Take a look at his chest. Good detailing there as well. The coloration on this figure just really pops. This looks really nice. The arms, the hands, which of course double as the claws, look really good. I think the nails would have benefited from a paint application, but that's okay. Get down to the crotch. Good painted detail there. Thighs. The knee spikes, done really well. Detail on the inside. and on the outside. And on the feet. Take a look at the back. So all around, a really well done figure. I mean, even the back of the head has some crazy detailing on it. So yeah, very nice. Now, as far as articulation goes, this guy's got some great posability, bar none, absolutely. So his head is on a ball joint, so you do get a pretty decent amount of up, a little bit of down until his chin hits. You get good side to side, so he can look very inquisitive. And of course, you get full 360 if necessary. Now, for the shoulders, he comes straight out. Now, this is on a double hinge for transformation here, but if you just come straight out right there, he gets good range of motion, and if you need to, you can utilize that transformation joint to get it even higher. So, you know, he can be that kid in the class, ooh, pick me, pick me, pick me. And then you do get bicep swivel, but it's up here instead of down near the elbow. So if anything, I think I would have preferred to have seen it lower, but I understand why they did it because of the elbow here. But you do get it. So great range of motion in the bend. You get just over 90 on that. Plus you get a little bit backwards, but that's due to the transformation. But you know, if you wanted to utilize that for something, you certainly could. And come down here to the hands, the slash feet. These are just, I would love to see this on every Transformer. This is just great. You get wrist swivel and you get tilt. So, wow, that's just great. Plus you get the articulation in the claws or fingers. So you can do almost anything. I mean, you're limited only by your imagination here, the kind of pose, what you could do with these arms in robot mode. This is just really great. So I can't say enough about it. So let's go ahead and move those out of the way. See, he can even, you know, you can have him raised in the roof. So that's great. He does have waist rotation. Again, great range of motion and posability. I don't know if it's just my copy or if it's the design, but I do have a little bit of wiggle in there as well. It's not enough to be detrimental to the figure. It's just something that I noticed. So just something to be aware of, I suppose. Now, for the splits for his legs, he can do the full splits and a little bit beyond, depending on where you have this in relation to the cutout front and back for his crotch and his butt. So if you have them oriented here, you can get good amount of splits, but if you wanted just a little bit more, you could angle these back, those thigh joints or hip joints back a little bit, and you could get some more range of motion there if you needed to. You do get thigh rotation on my copy. My goodness, these are very tight. It almost feels like I'm going to break it, but it is present. And then for the knees, you get just over 90 on the bend. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to show you the front and back kicks. So he can kick forward that far, and he can kick back. Again, if you swing this out a little bit, he can get full kick back as well. So he can go full gymnast. Now we'll talk about the knees. So just over 90 on the knees. And again, due to transformation, you get a little bit forward. So if you want to give him that chicken leg look or make him look like he's suffering from a severe ACL injury, you could do that. And for the feet, you get ankle tilt, severe ankle tilt, which is great. And you do have front and back motion. And of course you have the, again, the toe joints here are very tight, but you can angle those toe joints as well. Something a little unusual, although my toe joints are very tight, so I have to hold this end of the foot, and you'll see this also during transformation, and then I have to use my hands both hands to hold that foot in place to get this heel spur back. that's very tight, but the actual foot itself is borderline loose. So I've had a little bit of difficulty just with him holding his own weight in certain poses. But overall, the articulation on this guy is just phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about it. So let's try to get him stood up there. Okay. So what we'll do now is we will get into the transformation. I will show the effects after we bring him back to robot mode. So I'll show the effects in robot mode and then bring him back to robot. So let's go ahead and get him into his dyno mode. So as always, if you want to follow the directions, you could do that. There's a couple of different ways you could go about the transformation on this guy. This is just the way that I do it. So open to interpretation for sure. So I raise the arms up right there. I don't bring them up here yet. I just raise them up right there. And then you can go ahead, come back here. This part of the tail just tabs in, and you can untab it so that way you have that sitting loose. All right. And then what you can do from here is you pull the claws out of his chest. So right in this area, take those claws, pull them out, and bring them back. Now the claws have just a small tab right there, or a small slot, and then the tab is right there. So just pull that out of the way, and then you can move those out. Now what you can do is you can just take this entire thing and lift it up. So he's doing a pose kind of like that. Then you take these sections right here, and you're going to rotate those until you line them up with the other section right there. Squeeze those together. So you should have something that looks like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Bring those together. And now here, this is important, you will need to rotate the shoulder pads. So the entire arm assembly, 180 degrees of the shoulder pads. So you can see the difference between the two. And then you're going to bring that down, and it's going to sit right in that cavity. And if you can see the mushroom peg in there, then you know from an orientation standpoint, you know you have that sitting correctly. So that's something that the first time I did the transformation on this, I missed it. So it caused me a little bit of grief until I went back and retraced my steps. So again, same thing over here. You should have something that looks like that. Okay? So once you have that, what you can do is you can take the head and just kind of gently pull back, and you have a tab that goes into the back of the dyno head right there. And that will disconnect the entire upper body assembly right here. So what you can do from this point is bring this tail section up. And as you do that, it's going to move at this pivot point, and you're going to bring everything forward. Something worth noting is make sure you have his head tilted back like he's looking up in the sky, because he has these two little things that jut out on the sides of his cheeks that can catch on these sections right here if you're not careful. So if he's looking down, he catches and his head wants to start to turn. But if you have him looking up, he will clear those. So you want to have something that looks like that. And then you're going to bring the tail up. This tail is just going to come up, and it's going to cover that head. And he's just going to tab in, so you have something like that. Now, turn your attention to the legs. What you're going to do on the legs, you have on the calves right here. Oh, you can do this before or after, but I'm going to go ahead and do this now. Take and rotate 180 degrees at the waist. That way when you take a look there, you can see that that's all lined up. So right here at the calves, you're going to want to open these up on both legs. And then for the feet, This is going to take a little bit of manipulation when we get to the next step. But for now, just kind of tilt those feet down and take those very tight heels and sink those heels down into the feet. Now you're going to flip him upside down. Just make sure you keep these arms out of the way for now because you're not ready for them yet. And you'll notice right here, we were talking about these knee joints. If you bend these backwards until the knee spikes are touching the thigh, do that on both sides. That's going to orient these legs in the right area or the right shape. So what you're going to do now is you're actually going to just take this and you're going to collapse all this together. So before I do that, you'll notice you have a tab here that goes to this slot. You have a tab here that goes to this slot. And then you have these foot tabs that you are going to manipulate into these little slots right there. So I wanted to point that out now because once I get this guy collapsed, it's not the easiest thing to see. I wanted to make sure that you knew what I was doing here. So you're just going to take those legs and you're going to start collapsing them up. And the most difficult part, the part you really have to manipulate, is getting these feet beyond this point to get the tabs up there in those slots. So it can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's not the most fun thing to do. So get those legs lined up. Get those feet over. And then the same thing on this side. Get those lined up. Line that tab and that slot up. Squeeze those together. Get this foot over. Squeeze all that together. So that's why I wanted to show you beforehand what I was doing, because once the action actually takes place, it's kind of difficult to keep track of what's going on. But you should have something that looks like this. And if you're here, you're almost home. So now all we need to do is fold these legs down. They don't tab in anywhere. They just fold down. And then they orient themselves as such. And then what you can do here is just go into the cleanup mode. Bend those down. I've discovered that in order to get the feet properly oriented, I will take these at the thigh bend. You can maneuver those just a little bit. And I've discovered that if I tilt those inward and then I tilt my claws out, I get a lot more stability. So again, tilt that inward, and then right here, tilt those claws out. Maybe not to such an extreme. He doesn't need to look that way. Then you can lift up his head, bring out his arms. Then we'll get him set down here, and then I'll show you what to do with the tail. So, yeah. Looks like he's got a bit of an extreme gap there with his feet. That's a little bit better. All right, so now for the tail, what you want to do is you want to open this up. And then you'll notice in there that you have a semicircle with that slot down there. That's going to line up to the tab here. So you're just going to take those, you're going to push that sword in so everything's lined up as such. You will then collapse the tail, squeeze it together, and then you will simply plug that in to the back of Mr. Dinobot, and there you go. You have Dinobot in his dinosaur form. And all things being equal, this is a pretty cool looking dino form. Even the detail for the Velociraptor, even the large claws down here, they're angled up a little bit, just like they would be on the actual animal. So really cool. He's got good stability, so he's not going to fall over on you. You can do a few different poses. Get him up, get him down. So really good job with this dino mode. I'm really impressed by this. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation in dinosaur mode. He doesn't have a whole lot, but what little bit he does have is nice. So let's start with the head first. I'm going to move these out of the way. So with the head, you do have an opening mouth and you do have a good amount of up and down. I mean, this is for transformation, so it gets a little extreme back here and you can see the gap for transformation. But if you bring his head all the way up, that's about the extent, the limit that you have. And then the mouth does open. What I've discovered is it's a little bit easier depending on how you hold the head. If you can get him about right there and just kind of push down, your pin for your jaw is right there. So if you can push down, you can get that mouth full open. And even has a little tongue in there, which is nice. And then for the Velociraptor arms, you do have them on a ball joint. So you get a full 360 out of that. They do come out that far, down that far before they hit the body. Elbows, I don't know why you would want to, but you can go that far, bending the wrong way, and 90, bending the right way. And then for his claws here, they are on a ball joint as well, so you can take those any direction you want. And then for transformation, they're going to fold flat anyway, so you can take them down that far. And then for the legs, we already really hit all the articulation for the legs. There's not a whole lot here. If you want to widen his stance, you can do that. So you can bring his stance out a little bit wider. And then he has the twist. A little bit of a knee twist right there. And then range of motion limited because of the interference with the dyno mode. And then you have, of course, just like I showed in the wrist, you have a full 360 right there. And you have the tilt, which is nice. And then, of course, the claws are adjustable as well. No articulation in the tail, nothing else in the body. The head does not move side to side. It's just an up-down motion. But overall, yeah, really cool looking figure. I like him. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll get him transformed back up to the robot mode, go through effects parts, and we'll bring in the comparisons and we'll get this wrapped up. So transformation back to robot mode is pretty easy and straightforward. Take that tail off, set that off to the side. You can just get these arms out of the way for now. You're gonna, during the transformation, you're gonna constantly be moving these to get them out of your way, but you know, if you want to raise them up right there for now, that's fine. Take the legs, lift the legs all the way out like that. So you should have something that looks like that. And then this is where you're going to undo the feet. And this is the part that I've never really liked, where you have to pull on a transformer to clear things. So this is probably my least favorite part, but you kind of pull that apart to get it past that tab. Do that on both sides. And then when you do, then you can just bring those legs down. They will untab for you. Bring the legs down. Go ahead and spin them 180 degrees. And while you're down here, you can just go ahead and do the leg cleanup. So collapse this, bring the foot out, take that very tight heel spur and get it out of the way. Same thing on the other side, bend that knee down a little bit, collapse this calf, move the foot, heel spur, and then you have the legs done. And well, that looks like something from a nightmare, but all right. So now what you can do is you can go ahead, you take that tail, get that tail out of the way, just lift it up and get it out of there. You can collapse his head, so close that mouth, push the head down so it's oriented as such, and then you can bring all this forward. And when you do, here, let me do that again, get these arms out of the way yet again. So you're like this, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring this forward and down. And then you've got this divot right here that's going to fit right over this area. So bring that down, That's a soft click or a soft snap in place. Take the tail, then you have these two slots there and there, to the tabs there and there. Bring those down, fit those in, squeeze them together. And now you should have something that looks like that. What you do here then is, what I do is I hold on to both sides of these, and then pull the arm up, not at this shoulder joint, but at the actual transformation joint, so the shoulder pads come up with it as well. And I just did the wrong thing there. There we go. Lift them up like that. So then, if these haven't already split on you, you split them, twist that forward. Split it, twist it forward. Then you can collapse. Again, get these arms out of the way. Then you can collapse this down, and then that forms his chest. So now it's time to do something with these arms. So what you can do, you see you have those little slots in the hands, you have the tabs right there on the forearms. So you're going to bring that hand up until they click, spin that around. So you're oriented like that. Bring the hand down until it clicks. Should have something that looks like that. And now what you're going to do is you're going to align those slots right there with these tabs. You're not going to get full penetration. It's just going to be enough to put those claws in the right orientation in his chest. So you should end up, once it's all collapsed, you should end up with something that looks like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Bring that in. And now, in the home stretch here, you're just going to spin those shoulder pads around. And you're going to drop the arms. And then you're going to orient everything the way you want. Bring the arms down. Again, the posability in this guy is just fantastic. I absolutely love it. So there you have Dinobot back in his robot mode. Good looking dude. All right, so let's talk about effects parts. You can do a couple of things with this guy. He's got a couple of 5mm ports on him. Nothing too extravagant, but we'll talk about it, and we'll start with the tail here. So I guess we need to transform this as well, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, this is a really, really tight seam. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get a fingernail in, so if I struggle with this, just bear with me for a moment until I can get a... There we go. So get one side open and get the other side open. So his weapon, you can display like that if you want, so he can hold his weapon as such. Or you can take them apart, and then he has his sword and he has his battle shield. So with the sword, you can get an effects part on the tip. I don't want to put it in too far, but you can get an effects part in the tip if you want to do that. And of course, with this is a 5mm port, so you can really get crazy and do something along those lines. So that's really cool. On Dinobot himself, you have in the palms, if you want him shooting fire, he can be shooting fire. He does have 5mm ports down here on his feet, so the same thing, if you want to have him blasting off, you can do that as well. Let's get his arms back where they were. Okay, so unless I missed some, and apologies if I did, I think that covers the extent of the effects that he's compatible with. Let me just double check him one more time and make sure I didn't miss anything. Well, you can use this if you want right here. And I can... So if you want to make that a jetpack, you can do something along those lines as well. and have him jetting off. Oh, yeah, I did miss some. You've got some ports right there that you can use as well. So yeah, that's kind of cool. He's got some effects compatibility, which always lends to the playability of the figure. Let's go ahead and give him his weapons now. So, nothing crazy here. You have a peg and you have a hole, and just kind of put those two together. And then he's wielding his shield. And then you have this tab, which is the same size as a 5mm port. So you just take that sword and stick that sword in there. Claps his fingers around it. And now you have a fully armed up Dinobot. Really cool. I like this figure. The more I play with him, the more I like him. So, next step that we will take is we will bring in the comparisons. Now, I've mentioned in previous reviews, I didn't have any Beast Wars from when I was younger, so I don't have any direct comparisons for this guy. So what I'm really going to do is I'm just going to bring in the rest of the Kingdom crew and build the rest of the Kingdom crew around him so you can see what they all look like together as a family. So we're going to bring him front and center. And I think just for fun, I'm going to add the effects parts to him because that's just fun. There we go. Oh, stay up. See, this is the loose ankle. So if he starts leaning forward, he starts losing it a little bit. So maybe I ought to give him a little bit of a pose here. That way he's got some added stability. There we go. So, pew pew, bang bang. He is rocking those effects. So, bring in the rest of the family. We'll start with Big Purple himself. Come on in, Barney. Well, it's one dinosaur to another, right? So we'll bring him in. We'll just put him off to the side over there as long as he's still in frame. And again, I still think he should have been part of the Studio Series 86 line, but he's part of the Kingdom line. Great figure. Bring in Mr. Cyclonus. We will bring in Optimus Primal, so we'll get a couple Voyagers around him so you can see Voyager to Voyager how he looks. We'll bring in Cheetor, if Cheetor is willing to actually stay standing. Looks like he might be. All right, come on, guys. You can bring you in back here a little bit. I might have to move all these guys backwards if I'm going to get the whole family in the shot. So, bring him on back. Uh-oh. All right, we will bring in Arachnid. I said Arachnid, I'm so sorry. Black Arachnia. Bring in Warpath. And we'll bring in a couple little core guys. Core Prime with his crooked rifle. And Mr. Rat Trap. So there you go, guys. That's a good looking group right there. This Kingdom line is really coming together. I had my doubts at first, but this is looking good. I like what I'm seeing, and I'm getting more impressed with every release. So, to wrap it up, my verdict on Dinobot. He's cool. The posability is second to none. He's got a presence. I don't know how else to describe it, but just with that face sculpt alone, he just looks great. The weapons are cool. Dino mode looks nice. The transformation, it's a bit fiddly, particularly when you're trying to get those feet in the right place, but the transformation overall is not that bad. I think it has some clever points to it, which I really enjoy. And he just fits in this line so well. I have to say that these releases are getting me very interested in the Beast Wars line in general. And if you can find him, pick him up. He's definitely worth retail. There's no doubt about that. I would be hard-pressed to tell you to pay more than retail for him. I know some scalpers like to go, 1.5 to 2 times retail on this. If you pay $5 or $10 more, maybe that's not so bad, especially if you get the free shipping on him. But if you can find him in your local Walmart, local Target, pick him up. He is fun. The more I play with this guy, the more I like him. Biggest complaint, he's got those loose ankles, but I can work around that. You know, there are a few fixes that you can do to tighten those ankles up. So for right out of the box, for what he is, I have no complaints. So yeah, final verdict on this guy is, if you like the rest of these, you're going to love him. Pick him up. He is great. So that's going to do it for this review, guys. As I say in every review, I do this for the love of it. I don't do this for the money. But if you could show us some support by giving us a like, hitting that subscribe button, giving us a thumbs up, leaving us some comments to let us know if we're doing good, let us know if we need to do something better. I love talking about these guys. I love preaching the gospel on these guys. So the more feedback that we can get, the better we can make this channel for you. So if you're watching us on Rumble, rumble.com or the Rumble app, hit that Rumble button. Give us a subscribe there as well. We're trying to add more content every day. And yeah, guys, just thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.